Chapter 3, Lesson 2, The New England Colonies. Seeking religious freedom. The Jamestown settlers had come to America in search of wealth. The next wave of English colonists arrived in search of religious freedom. England had been a Protestant country since 1534, when the king, Henry VIII, broke away from the Roman Catholic Church and formed the Anglican Church. Not everyone in England was happy with the new church. Many people dissented, disagreeing with Anglican beliefs or practices. Some English people remained Catholic. Others were Protestants who wanted to reform the Anglican Church. Still, others wanted to break away from it altogether. The Protestants who wished to reform the Anglican Church were called Puritans. Those who sought to set up their own churches were known as Separatists. The Separatists were persecuted, mistreated because of their beliefs in England. Some fled to the Netherlands. There they found freedom to practice their religion, but they had difficulty finding work. They also worried that their children were losing their religious values and their English way of life. The Pilgrims settled Plymouth. In 1620, a group of separatists decided to move to America. They became known as the Pilgrims. A pilgrim is someone who undertakes a religious journey. The Pilgrims were able to get grants of land from the Virginia Company. They got permission to settle in Virginia and to practice their religion freely. They boarded a ship called the Mayflower and left to begin new lives. The Mayflower drifted off course on its journey across the Atlantic. The first land the Pilgrims sighted was Cape Cod, well north of their target. It was November and winter was fast approaching. The colonists decided to drop anchor in Cape Cod Bay. They went ashore on a cold, bleak day in December at a place they called Plymouth. The Mayflower Compact. Plymouth was outside the territory of the Virginia Company and its laws. While they were still on board the ship, the Pilgrims signed a document they called the Mayflower Compact. This document set up an organized, orderly government. Each signer promised to obey the laws passed for the general good of the colony. The Mayflower Compact was a key step in the development of representative democratic government in America. Native American help. During their first war in America, almost half the Pilgrims died. Illness, hunger, and cold took a terrible toll. In the spring, however, two Native Americans, Squanto and Samoset, befriended the colonists. They taught the Pilgrims to grow corn, beans, and pumpkins, and showed the colonists where to hunt and fish. Without their help, the Pilgrims might not have survived. Squanto and Samoset also helped the Pilgrims make peace with the Wampanoag people who lived in the area. For a time, the two groups lived together in harmony. In the fall of 1621, the Pilgrims included the new Wampanoag Friends in a feast of Thanksgiving. New Colonies. In 1629, a group of Puritans formed the Massachusetts Bay Company. They received a royal charter to establish a colony north of Plymouth. The company chose John Winthrop to be the colony's governor. In 1630, Winthrop led about 900 men, women, and children to Massachusetts Bay. Most of them settled in a place they called Boston. More settlers followed. During the 1630s, more than 15,000 Puritans journeyed to Massachusetts to escape religious persecution and economic hard times in England. This movement of people became known as the Great Migration. At first, Winthrop and his assistants made the colony's laws. In 1634, settlers demanded a larger role in the government. Adult male church members were allowed to vote for the governor and for representatives to the government. Later, property ownership became a requirement for voting. The Puritans came to America to put their religious beliefs into practice. At the same time, they themselves had little tolerance for different beliefs. They criticized or persecuted people who did not agree with their views. They strictly enforced their own religious rules. This lack of tolerance led people to form new colonies. Connecticut and Rhode Island. To the west of Boston is land we now call the Connecticut River Valley. This rich land is better for farming than the stony soil around Boston. In the 1630s, colonists began to settle this area. A leader of this movement was Massachusetts minister Thomas Hooker. He did not like how Winthrop and other Puritan leaders ran the colony. In 1636, Hooker led his congregation to the Connecticut River Valley. There he founded the town of Hartford. Other nearby towns were soon established. 3 years later, these towns formed a colony called Connecticut. In 1639, they adopted a plan of government called the Fundamental Orders of Connecticut. This was the first written constitution in America. The document described the organization of representative government in detail. Like the Mayflower Compact, it reflected a belief in democratic principles. A minister named Roger Williams founded the colony of Rhode Island. Williams felt that government should not force people to worship in a certain way. He also believed it was wrong for settlers to take land away from the Native Americans. Forced by Massachusetts leaders to leave the colony, Williams found refuge with the Narragansett, a Native American people. They later sold him land, where Williams found the town of Providence. With its policy of religious toleration, Rhode Island became a safe place for dissenters. It was the first place in America where people of all faiths could worship freely. Others followed Williams's example. In 1638, John Wheelwright led a group of descendants from Massachusetts to found the town of Exeter in New Hampshire. New Hampshire became an independent colony in 1679. Conflict with Native Americans. As settlers spread across New England, they met the Native Americans who lived there, the Wampanoag, the Narragansett, and other groups. Native Americans traded furs for settlers' goods, but conflicts arose. Usually settlers moved into Native American lands without permission or payment. Throughout the colonial period, settlers and Native Americans competed fiercely for land. In 1675, Wampanoag leader Metacomet waged war against the New England colonies. Known to settlers as King Philip, Metacomet enlisted the help of other Native American groups. King Philip's war raged for 14 months. In the end, the colonists defeated Metacomet. The war destroyed the power of the Native Americans in New England. Colonial settlement expanded.